I'm Simon Ancher. I'm a furniture designer and maker in Launceston, Tasmania. I think probably it's the most successful distillation of ideas going into produce a product. So the one that has managed to execute that design in a refined simplicity and do it successfully epitomises the strength and quality of that design, and therefore can be held up as an archetype or an icon. In a furniture context, I think often, unfortunately, those icons in design can be heavily ripped off, and therefore that's the price point hitting the marketplace, and so therefore almost by default they become iconic. Not necessarily for the right reasons, but originally those objects, in my experience and my feeling, are the ones that just really are held up as the example of wow, this has been done to such a high level, a successful degree, and really what other designers and maybe the general population aspire to be. Or you think of things like, oh God, I wish I could have done that, and that's sort of most iconic objects have that aspect to them. Growing up, my parents had original Eames artefacts, so we had the lounge chair and ottoman, which was my grandfather's. That's probably my strongest memory of like a real icon and a classic. But also cutlery. They had some Danish cutlery, and it just seemed so, I don't know, it was just simple, pure, it did the job, and it was really devoid of any decoration. Well, it's slightly embarrassing, but I think I must have been about grade 6, and my parents had just put up a new front fence using pear scrub, so sort of natural edged sticks. So there was a surplus of these lying around the place. I don't know why I got interested in it, but the carport roof seemed it was achievable to jump off that and maybe not hurt yourself too bad. So we got thinking that maybe designing our own hang gliders and using some of that pear wood and garbage bags and a bit of gaffer tape might suffice. And I took that project that we set ourselves pretty seriously, and I was 100% sure that my hang glider was going to do the job. None of our hang gliders did the job, and they were upstaged by the family umbrella, which was quite successful in just cushioning the fall. So, but that I guess that typifies when I really started to get interested in trialling designs and making stuff and being excited by the success of something that you set out to do, and failures weren't necessarily a reason to give up. It was more a case of, how can I look at that again? Maybe use a different tape or stronger garbage bags. I think my most satisfying design object is the one I call clipped wing. In essence, it came from a drop side bench. So really the simplest sort of bench seat form you could think about, because I've always loved that. So it's pointless making more iterations of that. So as a starting point, I was looking at it and saying, well, what's the shortcomings of that and the purity of that along drop side, boom. So often the failings are that the joinery, like the mitered joint, would succumb to a load side to side. Or if someone sat in the middle and it was, say, it's 1800 2 metre long bench, that flex would then make the feet wander. So and then what you've seen in that design is rails underneath. So I wanted to eliminate the rail, but I've always loved the aeroplane wing, particularly I forget which Boeing it is, but the wing that comes along and then it would just kick up at the end. And I just loved the line. I'm still amazed at how something can cantilever out like that and come under so much force and load and be totally fine. So I started to investigate the structural integrity of that and spanning and so forth, and a little bit by just through playing developed this notion of a fold, and then that led to how you do that. Started off thinking in steel, and then I just kept thinking, nah, they can't actually fold that and successfully repeat that, and then playing with timber, and it became more about the chamfer. So not folding, and so it was the chamfer and then laminating. So putting the two pieces together gave the strength, but there was also a lot of material weight which had been taken out. So through dealing with that, then I was left with an angle, and it ended up being that through the play and the various iterations and prototyping, that having a mitre on an angle, not horizontal and perpendicular to the ground, actually made it incredibly strong under side load, and it didn't give way, and it couldn't give way due to the nature of that fold angle. So there's a lot going on there. It's probably easy to explain with a model and demonstrate it, but I was really proud of that, and still am proud, because structurally it's logical. There are techniques, so in terms of making it, it's made off a series of jigs, so there's an achievability to it. There's a simplicity around it, but it highlights the innate qualities of the timber, say, being used, its strength, but also its fragility, and they generally engage. People were engaged and want to touch it and want to figure it out. And often I'll receive comments, "That's a lovely stool or bench. It's a shame it doesn't work." And I'll be like, "What do you mean?" "Oh, you couldn't sit on that." I say, "Sure you can." And I will generally jump up, stand on it, right on the edge, and demonstrate that the 9mm edge, which you think is 9mm, is actually, 35mm through the middle. It's all just to do with angles and chamfers. So it's been adaptable, and which I also think has made it a design which is particularly versatile. And so therefore it started out as a bench that was scalable, and can also be scalable as a table, as a desk, and then flipping it in different orientation as drawer handles and so forth. So I've been able to create a range out of that one sort of idea and that one detail, which to my knowledge I'm pretty sure it's original. I haven't seen anything like that, or that employs that particular geometry. So that's why I'm most proud of it. So what's interesting about the sunburst, and my preference for the sunburst, is traditionally you might get a book matched pattern. So it's a little bit more like a kaleidoscope, quite angular, even though in this case it's a circle, the pattern is angular. I prefer the slip match, which is more like a wheel, and so any pattern that, or a knot or a little bit of figure in the timber ends up being like a deck of cards that you spin round, or a peacock, depending on how you choose to slice that stack of veneers. And the sunburst really does then show off that feature that exists within that veneer flitch. So I really do quite like that, and every sunburst is then completely original. Because that's a composite, then that enables me to use the steel timber frame underneath without having to be concerned with wood movement, and that can be simply fastened from underneath. The steel enables me to have a 6mm on one side, a thin, very fine edge, which is then counter-referenced with a 100mm wide fold of almost ribbon-like. And there are other details in there which are relatively hidden, but if you were to look, it makes it sort of holistic and complete. And there are also nice little details within the steel manufacture that enables sort of no visible welds to be seen. So that's been really successful, that piece, and I'm pretty proud of the resolution of all those components coming together. At the end of last year and then moving into this year, the COVID-19 growing pandemic was really scary, and early on there was probably that when all the lockdowns sort of started to come into place, and this realisation that no, this was not an isolated event happening in another country. This is actually quite rapidly spreading across the globe. I think it was highlighted through everyone having this sense of fear of the unknown, really, and the uncertainty. So it's hard to plan. It's hard to forecast around those set of parameters. My wife Lisa particularly was amazing in trying to forecast and future-proof and set the wheels in motions for being really proactive with that we're still open. We've effectively closed the showroom, but we're still working, and we're sort of in a mini lockdown, which in some ways wasn't a bad thing for us, because it enabled us to actually catch up and get ahead on a lot of jobs without distractions of sort of new work and inquiries and people coming in and out. So we sort of got through that initial panic and anxiety through just an approach of right, head down, tail up, just work through it, get it done, and hope that things would pan out. What I have noticed, and I've felt this myself, is an increased desire to want to support local. It was about trying to support Australian made, locally made.